基本法確保咗一國兩制可以行穩致遠，令香港保持獨特地位。
低稅率以及健全嘅基礎建設，亦都令到香港有非常之好嘅營商環境。
香港完善嘅法制，令經濟穩定繁榮。
國安法令社會安定，自然更有利營商環境啦。香港同祖國緊密聯繫，亦都係中國一個面向國際嘅窗口。呢個地位可以話係世界上獨一無二。
基本法第115條保障咗我哋嘅貨物、無形財產，甚至係資本嘅流動自由。
無論係內地或外地企業，同香港公司合作就係雙贏。
我哋香港人有國際視野，產品融合中西文化，靈活運用兩地嘅資源同埋優勢，能夠創造出更加高嘅價值。
做初創有政府支持好重要。我哋喺2016年加入咗數碼港培育計劃，幫助我哋發展得更加成功。
我相信完善嘅金融體系以及法治係非常之適合我哋喺香港建設我哋嘅業務。
喺基本法嘅保障之下，香港喺大灣區開發之中擔任重要角色，可以見香港嘅年輕人機遇良多啊！
Hi everyone and welcome back. Last week we left you thinking about drones and their many possible applications. Each week we'll dive deeper into topics such as robotics, artificial and virtual reality, blockchain, e-commerce and more. Gene editing can be useful in treating or preventing certain genetic diseases.
Many businesses are trying to solve the same problems and target the same audience as you are.
was just shy of 1 million.
This pandemic is not over.
Over the past 2 years, the COVID pandemic has caught the whole world off guard. In Hong Kong alone, over 1 million people tested positive. These serious challenges have severely disrupted normality and created immense strain everywhere. COVID caused over 9,000 deaths in our city and over 6 million worldwide. It has long been a priority for Lingnan University to find answers to real-world problems through research and learning. This can be seen in our core values of education, care for learning, and research impact with care.
As a leading liberal arts university, Lingnan University cares about quality education and high-impact research. Our university is dedicated to promoting interdisciplinary research, providing financial and other support for potentially transformative projects. We have actively promoted regional and international partnerships for enhancing student learning, research and knowledge transfer. Research at Lingnan University has strong commitment in promoting United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, such as health and well-being, education for all, climate change, eliminating poverty, and building sustainable cities. We connect with different sectors locally and globally to co-creating a caring society.
Some of these initiatives are directly linked to the COVID pandemic. For instance, Lingnan teams recently invented UVC germicidal lights to combat the spread of the virus. And designed a transparent air filtration mask to help those who are hearing impaired and elderly caregivers. This won the Gold Award at the Muse Design Awards for Breakthrough Humanitarian Technologies. Together with our other Lingnan invention, a force-sensitive wheelchair control system. Separate studies are also being conducted on the pandemic's impact on doctors and nurses, changes to social norms, and the well-being of school children and teachers. This work ensures that Lingnan research has a direct, positive impact. Lingnan stands fast in its important role, continuing to stress impact with care and to serve as a force for good in the wider world.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the HKTDC Entrepreneur Day 2022. The session, EdTech, Never-Ending Journey of Learning, will soon begin. Today's session will be conducted in English. Simultaneous interpretation in Cantonese and Putonghua will be available. For physical participants, please get a headset at the reception counter. You can tune to Channel 1 for Cantonese and Channel 2 for Putonghua. For online participants, you may select the audio channel underneath your video screen, and you are also welcome to raise questions through the Q&A box. Selected questions will be addressed at the Q&A towards the end of each section. Today, we are pleased to have Mr. Tommie Lo, founder and CEO of Preface, as well as Mr. Schalk Pienaar, founder and CEO of Nexefy, to join us. Without further ado, the session, EdTech, Never-Ending Journey of Learning, will now begin. May I now pass the time to our first speaker, Mr. Schalk Pienaar. Hi Schalk, can you hear us clearly?
Hello, yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you very much. It's great to have you.
So may I now pass the time to you?
Thank you very much. Will you be queuing the presentation on your end?
You may start your sharing now.
Excellent. Just wanted to confirm, are you running the presentation or am I sharing my screen?
Just a minute. It's showing on the screen now. Can you see it?
I can see it. Yep. Thank you very much. I'm just going to pin that on my screen so it's nice and big. Very good. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm very privileged to be speaking to all of you about the future of what we believe is learning, and specifically for industry and large enterprise as well. So Nexefy is a company that builds what we call purpose-built training content for critical skills inside organizations. And we target immersive and digital technologies, as well as blending those two together into seamless products. So if you can skip to the next slide, please. So we are essentially a world-class team of immersive technologists and digital learning experts. We're a small team in Australia consisting of 32 members. And we essentially believe fundamentally that VR is a technology. And when I say VR, I'm assuming that everyone understands that to be virtual reality. is a technology that can transform learners' skill sets and immediately recognize through practical applications. That's essentially how we all learn, is by practicing on the job. So learning through play or first-hand experiences and applied knowledge creates, what we believe to be a more appealing environment for learners and results in much stronger skill sets. Ultimately, inside these virtual environments, you can build up some muscle memory of real-world applications. Next slide, please. So just by a very quick introduction, my name is Schalk Pienaar. I have been in the EdTech space for the last 17 years of my life. I started a company called Crumo. Crumo was a content specialist. We created content for learning. That ultimately created a company called Chloe, which is all about distribution. So that would have been seen as a cloud-based learner management system. And then throughout my journey, I've been very fortunate to travel throughout the Asia Pacific as a member of the Lord Mayor and Brisbane's Economic Steering Committee. And then earlier this year, I founded a company called Nexefy. Now, Nexefy is basically an extension of everything I knew, now just into a virtual reality world and context. So next slide, thank you. So the case for VR as part of that lifelong learning journey for employees in upskilling them in the organization is very compelling. 87% of companies experience that there are skills gaps, and they expect within the next few years. Only 3% of them feel like they already have the programs in place to solve for that. VR learning requires about 40 to 60% less employee time to achieve the same level of skills and competence. 65% improvement in the retention rates as well, so how well people remember it, and 97% of employees expect their workers will need to train on the job. And then by 2030, we believe that there's about 23 million jobs that will use virtual reality or augmented reality as part of the suite of tools. You just skip, thank you. So the industries that we believe will win in terms of the benefits that VR can bring are really in that space of military and industry, where there is basically an over-reliance on taking real-world assets out of operation. So if you have to take a train out of operation to train someone to drive it, that's very expensive. Where the training is on the job normally, and where the task is repetition. So, to get to a place where you're competent and confident, you have to repeat the task a lot, and where it's a heavily regulated industry, and that there are national standards, and where learning outcomes are valued in terms of its quality, and where data intelligence drives essentially competency outcomes. So next slide. So the benefits of virtual reality learning from our experience and what we've seen is that it basically definitely increases the speed to get someone to a place where they're competent. It reduces the time, especially when they have to be reaccredited for a task. The training delivery is very consistent because it's pre-engineered, and it reduces the downtime, obviously, of the equipment. It improves the resource allocation, so people allocation. It reduces any time lost because of injuries and incidents, because you're in a safe environment. It can also improve the public perception of a company and therefore its industrial relations. And it can increase talent attraction and retention as well. And you're basically creating a world that is a digital version of your real world, and you can leverage that in multiple aspects. Next slide, please. Our clients have had incredible return on investment of investing in virtual reality. So Horizon and Kiwi Rail, for instance, they are rail freight companies in Australia and New Zealand. They have both recouped their investment into virtual reality technologies within 1 year. In the case of Horizon, in 8 months, they have made all of the money back that they have spent on the application, and it's now going to continue to develop people for that organization, as well as in the Air Force and in larger mining companies. You can imagine if you don't have to utilize a real train or a real helicopter to do the training, that the benefits to the organization is rewarded very quickly. Next slide, please. This is a bit of a detailed slide. I won't go into too much of the detail here, but basically VR experiences can range from simple in 3D environments that you can walk through And if you then overlay that with 3D objects that people can ultimately interact with, and then create scenarios where they can do job tasks, you can see how you can escalate, the experience. Ultimately, where it gets really interesting is when you can create activities and overlay different scenarios. So we can make it rain, we can make it sunshine, we can bring in environmental conditions, and then different modes, help you learn the task, show you how it's done, let you do it yourself, and then ultimately be assessed in VR. And if all of those data points are then collected into a central data system, that provides for a very compelling report back on the learning of the user. Next slide, please. So VR for us delivers enduring value because we focus on experiences that we localize and contextualize for the customer's environment. So when the learner goes into these virtual reality environments, they feel right at home in that environment, and they feel like they've been there before, they understand the place, and the learning outcomes as a result of that is much more significant, and they feel like they are being appreciated by the employer as well. Next slide. We've got many great clients that are already reaping the rewards of this sort of technology, especially government agencies that we've helped put drivers on the road and large mining and blue chip organizations. Next slide. So just a few project highlights as we get closer to the end of the presentation. So next slide, please. This is a really good example where we've created an entire driver training program for Horizon Rail, essentially building a replica of their real world, including all of the equipment that people would normally use to drive trains. They don't only drive trains, but they also shunt trains in a shunt yard. Now, shunting is the process of connecting wagons together and then ultimately connecting those wagons to a locomotive, creating essentially a long row of wagons and a locomotive called a consist. Now, people can actually do that in a virtual world, connect these wagons, turn on brakes, release brakes, connect pipes, etc., until they've got the right series of wagons, and then they can drive that out of the shunt yard. And then the second part of this activity is you learn to drive a train by doing pre-start inspections, just like you would in the real world, and ultimately pressing all the right buttons in the cabin, to make this train work. That's a 4-time platinum award, the project as well. Next slide, please. A second really interesting training piece is that everyone in Australia almost now goes through a learner license test. So this is to get your license to drive a car. That is now all done in a combination of online as well as virtual simulated scenarios. So instead of doing a test on a paper, you're doing this test online and getting your license that way through the government. Next slide, thank you. We're a multiple awarded company, very fortunate in this space, well recognized across the globe now, and we continue to make amazing applications. And I really thank you for your time today and your patience in sitting through the presentation with me. We've reached the end of the time, and I look forward to the question and answer session at the end. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Schalk, for the insightful sharing. Please stay online for the Q&A session later. Next up, we'll have Mr. Tommie Low, founder and CEO of Preface. Tommie, please.
Hi, thank you. So let me introduce a little bit of the project that we're working in. Preface, I would say Preface is a tech enabler for corporates, for individuals. We're based in Hong Kong, headquartered in Hong Kong, but then we have our operation in Singapore, in London, and Tokyo right now, going to New York and Melbourne next year. So what do we do, and why do we kind of like make this technology education platform for the society? So before that, maybe I can introduce a little bit of myself. I was raised in Hong Kong. I had my my undergrad in the States, a PhD program in London. I dropped out for a project, and fortunately, right now I'm having a lot of first-hand applications, first-hand of industry application for being a board member for Harvard Business Review, as well as in the MIT Technology Review. So from that, then what do? So basically what I can see, we need to tackle what's the education problem. When we talk about technology training, we work with a lot of firms, including all the leading banks, investment banks, luxury brands, as well as the tech firms. We do corporate training, onboarding training to these firms. But how any one of us actually would, we would want to go to a training session offered by a company. Not easy, right? Or I can actually, to make it easier to clarify what we do, say for the people who are here or online, think about it. How many times, or in the past 1 month or 2 months or 1 quarter, how many times have you been engaged into a discussion talking about Web3, blockchain, AI, machine learning? A lot of us, right? But then any one of us have a degree in Web3, NFT, AI, machine learning? None of us. So basically, this is the reason we are here. So we actually coming through to bridge the digital learning, technology learning for the 21st century. But what you see in the picture right now, it's actually like a traditional classroom. In a traditional classroom, do you know when this classroom has been built? It was back in the days when it was in 19th century, when there were a place called Prussia, which had been a leading German state in 19th century. And by that time, well, education supposedly worked as a function to provide talents for the society. The society was in an industrial revolution era, so we need factory workers. We need factory workers, so therefore the way that we design our classroom, you need to raise your hands to go to the washroom. You need to wait for the alarm clock to tell you which session has been ended. And all people with the same age group go into the same cohort, learn the same thing, and then you promote to the next cohort. It was so successful, and then America and Japan somehow copied the model to their own countries. It worked so well. And then Germany, Japan, and the United States have been the country benefit the most from the traditional education system. But since then, anything has been changed. We are growing up with such a classroom. 1 teacher, 40 students in a classroom. 40 students coming with different background, different strength, different weakness. But we have 1 teacher, 1 speed, 1 tone, having 40 people matching me, matching myself. So that's why even when we talk about simply online learning, it makes this one-to-many mapping, this problem, even exaggerate into one-to-too-many. So that's why we think education needs to be disrupted. So instead of solving this, we work to solve the one-to-many question by building a classroom without a physical notion of classroom. First, we want to redefine the notion of classroom. Back in the days when I was doing my PhD, I was teaching around UK without the need of a classroom. And then since 2021, even when COVID hits, our numbers grow, we are growing 50% quarter-on-quarter growth, 3 to 4 times year-on-year growth for 3 years, and having 9 digits revenue for a reason, because we have been redesigning and re-engineering education. How do we design it? We design the notion of classroom. When one-to-many, what if we groom as many teachers to match with many demand? So many-to-many, reducing it as one-to-one. For the majority of our class is one-to-one. It happens online, it happens offline. Therefore, during COVID, we have been growing. And then the classroom, do we need a blackboard? No, as long as you have an iPad, you have a laptop, we do technology education in a decentralized framework. So our clients could be in New York, could be in London, could be in Hong Kong, could be the classroom, could be your living room, your office, could be on Zoom. When you're tired of Zoom, you can do face-to-face. When you're tired of face-to-face, the inconvenience of traveling, we can do Zoom. So basically, we build a Web 0, Web 2, and Web 3 education channel with redesigning education. And the way we engineer it because it's one-to-one. What if we can customize a set of material for each member through a machine learning system? We build a recommended system by chopping the knowledge point into pieces so that our notes are actually generated by AI. So traditionally, when we build a tailor-made, customized set of notes for corporate or for individuals, it takes around 3 hours to produce 1 hour of materials. I'm talking about the experienced teachers. But now, by getting important feedbacks and data of every study, behavioral data from our clients and teachers, our recommended engine provides the notes in 3 seconds. And then, after providing the notes, our product is our clients purchase credits. So basically, 80% of the university, banks, luxury brands, or tech firm, most of our clients are MNCs. They have their project in Hong Kong, Singapore, and London. They buy credits from us. After they buy credits, they will choose if they would want to do one-to-one, or if they want to do a boot camp, or they would do it online with some customized video as well. So basically, this is how we grow. We will produce, and the way that we produce our content, when we do technology education, a lot of people think, well, Preface is a place where we do mainly coding education. Not necessarily coding, because a lot of our clients are C-suites in the in consulting firms, in banks, and they do not need to code. They need to learn, they need to know what they don't know. So that's why when we build content, it's uptrend, customized content. Let's say 2 days after FTX collapse, or 3 days after Luna and UST collapse, we will produce courses. Let's say a course of why stablecoin is not stable in 4 days, making a 3 hours content, and we saw thousands of courses like that. So that's why we would say education is a disruption, not only from the content-wise, but also from the way that we do education. And in the end, since we would want, our angle is we would want to redesign the notion of classroom, and we are so proud that we're growing from Hong Kong. And do you know the biggest coffee shop in Hong Kong is not owned by Starbucks nor Blue Bottle. It's owned by Preface. It's a 4-floor building right next to Times Square. It's actually the notion, because when we do decentralization, we believe classroom could be anywhere. Could be online, could be on the metaverse, could be offline. So that's why to build such a branding and build important brand trust, we build our own coffee shop and house workshops, projects with the world-leading brands in our places. So that's why one in Central right now and one in Causeway Bay. So this is how we grow, and we are replicating our model from Hong Kong all the way to Singapore, Tokyo, and London now. Hopefully you will see different places. The success of Hong Kong is actually replicating, we replicating our success model from Hong Kong. Instead of just go China or go Southeast Asia, we prefer to go global. Because the good thing about Hong Kong is it's small, so that the feedback system is going to be quick. And we have the global taste. We know what Londoners, New Yorkers, Tokyo people would like from the learning that we serve the corporates and individuals from Hong Kong. So hopefully it will work, and thank you for listening to my presentation, and hopefully I can bring you a new concept of where a classroom could be or what a textbook or content could be. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommie, for your sharing. We'll now move on to the Q&A session. For our audience on-site and online, You are welcome to raise questions through the Q&A box next to the video screen. So here comes our first questions for both speakers. What would be the must-have skill set for individuals in the coming future?
Maybe I go first. I would say the reason we start with coding education, I would say programming language would be a must-have skill set. It's more like English right now. It's more universal than English. Because we are having a lot of device right now. When we have a lot of device, how do we communicate with them? How can we be producer instead of just consumer of technology? And the way that we need to communicate with the machines, the engines, we speak their language. Just like the way I operate in Japan, in case my colleague, my business partner there, do not speak English, do not speak Cantonese nor Mandarin. So what can I do? The only thing that I can mobilize them to work with certain tasks, I have to speak in Japanese. The same thing that goes to technology. When we have more device, VR headsets, mobile, we need to speak their language. So what I'm seeing is from a lot of our corporate partners, now they're actually making Python programming, JavaScript programming to be a prerequisite for their new recruits. So I would say that's going to be some must-have skill sets by 2025 or something.
Schalk, any insights from you?
Yeah, I can definitely concur with Tommie there. I think if you're going to focus your attention to two things, the one thing is brush up on as many technical skills as you can get your hands on. That will set you up well for the future. And then also soft skills. I'll give you an example. If you are someone that can write code, and you've also got a great emotional intelligence and teamwork ability and the ability to present, I think the world is your oyster. So focus on two aspects, technical as well as soft skills.
So thank you. As time is running short, our Q&A session will end here. Once again, thank you both for your insights, and I'm sure our audience has learned a lot from it.
Thank
May
you.
I invite Tommie to come to stage for a group photo with Schalk Online. Please come to the stage front. Thank you. This marks the end of our session. We hope that you find the discussion fruitful. If you have any comments or suggestions, please fill in the questionnaire by scanning the QR code on the screen. Don't forget to also visit our exhibitors' booth on site and online for collaborations opportunities with participants from all over the world. The next session, Startup Express International, Meet the Global Winners, will start at 2 p.m. Please stay tuned. Thank you again for joining us today. We wish you a fruitful e-day. Thank you.